Welcome to a football show, Monday edition, little mini bye week edition for the Tennessee Titans. Easton Freeze in for Zach Lyons, who is adrift out at sea, literally out at sea
He
right
called
now.
and he went.
My name is Braden Gall. Of course, we are brought to you by Sinkers Beverages, the Kingston Group. You can catch Easton over, of course, on the Hot Read podcast brought to you by Broadway Sports Media. Of course, shout out to Boombaz. A little watch party last Thursday, so shout out to Boombaz.
Yeah, it went great. Awesome stuff. Check it out. Good pizza.
No more free shouts, though. Sinkers Beverages and the Kingston Group, they pay for their shouts, so here we go, boys. Sinkers Beverages. See this whiskey right here over my left shoulder if you're watching on YouTube or Twitter or Facebook, right over here.
Hand-picked barrel?
Hand-picked barrel pick. It is absolutely pristine. It is one of the best bourbons I have ever tasted in my life.
Is it really?
I'm not kidding. It is absolutely spectacular. I had a little bit last week on the reaction show live, of course, and only place you can get it in the entire world is Sinkers Beverages. So
that's
go to
cool. Like, genuinely, that's one of the coolest things.
Honestly, and shout out to Joe and Tim, who came with us on that trip, who are our listeners who got to go on that trip. One of the coolest things I've ever gotten to do as like a professional in this world, to get to do that. It was absolutely awesome. All Sinkers idea, of course, but it's what they do for their clients. It's what they do for their users. Of course, the allocation is coming up, so sign up for the in-crowd. Make sure you're going to Sinkers and spending some money because the allocations for the year are coming up soon, and there's going to be some really good stuff there, but only if you are a part of the in-crowd. So go there, of course, and sign up. Kingston Group, you guys know the drill, buildkg.com. We'll get to that in a second. Hey, Tim, what's up, man? Yeah, Tim had a good time that day, I believe. so did Joe. Nobody had as good a time as Joe, so shout out to Joe. On the show today, coming up quickly, we'll talk some SEC football a little bit later on. I love doing that with you when you fill in for Zach. So it looks like we may have an SEC championship game.
Looks like
it. The Dallas Turner hit. I think people are confused, I feel like, about what exactly happened and what took place and what should have happened. And, there's a lot of different ins and outs and what have you. So we'll get to the Dallas Turner hit. And then Missouri, I think, is pretty damn good. They showed over the weekend. So Tennessee's next two games, of course, Missouri and Georgia, one on the road. Their entire season could be defined by how they perform over their next.
Could be. I don't see how it could not be. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
this is nut cutting time for the Volunteers.
With two losses already, one could say nut cutting time. That is for sure. And then if we have time, which sometimes we never have time for the last topic, but if we get to it, this is one of the most bizarre Heisman races I can ever remember. So we'll get to that. But lots of Titan stuff today on the show. I think there's a nightmare scenario like playing out, like two different stories happening at the same time. And I cannot believe the number of people in my life over the weekend, Easton, that were asking the questions that I was being asked. So we've got to have that conversation. I know you've talked about it on one of your on I think it was your Friday episode.
Yep.
We've talked about it as well. And then of course we have to start with some injury news, unfortunately, along the Titans offensive line. Of course, it wouldn't be Tennessee Titans football if there wasn't injuries on the offensive line. So, Easton, how are you, man?
I'm great. I'm fantastic. I'm really looking forward to this week of Titans news, Titans discussion, because of how many different. I feel like this is like to go full Zach. This is like very Marvel multiverse. The different paths we could take at this nexus point. A couple of different big decisions the Titans have to make this week on the offensive line and at quarterback. We're going to talk about. It's going to make for some really interesting, I hope not frustrating football talk and football watching for the rest of the season.
Well, let's get to the part that didn't involve my weekend, which was, I mean, I'm not kidding, dude. Every single every human I ran into, I do a news podcast about like Metro Council news, and my co-host is like, he's like concerned about what the Titans are going to do. Like every single person in my life, my brother-in-law,
the most concerning story in the city.
Yes, everyone's like, "Oh my God, I can't. Is this gonna? Is this?" And they're all like, they're looking at me for answers, and I'm like, guys, I know what they should do. I think I know what they're going to do, but we'll get into that. So Vrabel is not going to ever help us with his press conferences because it's Mike Vrabel. So, all right. So, yes. By the way, Green Thumb says, "Do we know when the next Vrabel press conference is?" It is tomorrow at 1:00, and I wouldn't be surprised, literally, if he said anything. Anything he said, I wouldn't be surprised, but I doubt he gives us any clarity because these football coaches, Easton, think that there is some level of competitive advantage, I guess. I don't agree, but They think there is some competitive advantage by not saying anything.
Oh,
So I
very
that was,
of the let nobody know the state secrets that aren't going to be secrets for the next 4 days, and also
yeah.
you can probably always guess what they're going to do anyways. So
Well, and there's like 13 years of film on Ryan Tannehill.
hey,
And
go
there's
outside the box. Everyone's like, is it Tannehill? Is it Levis? No, we're starting Malik Willis this week. Then you'll be surprised, wouldn't you?
you
Just
know
out
what
of left field.
you know what I was so happy with on Thursday during our preview show, and then Thursday
What?
our reaction show, and I haven't heard every second of your show, but I'm pretty sure it didn't happen on your show either, which is that particular name has not been
Hmm.
mentioned in like 4 straight shows. So
I'm
I'm kind
saying
of
no one's
upset.
going to see it coming. No
I'm
one's going to
kind
see
of
it coming.
I'm kind of upset that you mentioned Malik Willis's name. Somebody on this show said
Still
day
on
one
this
of practice that Will Levis was ahead of Malik Willis, but we're not going to take any more victory laps. Nicholas Petit Frere, brutal season, second season in the NFL, suspended. It does get reduced. He is now out with shoulder surgery. It appears much more injured than even I thought, because it looked like he was trying to go back in the game
He
on
was
Thursday night after getting, holding. I guess he tore up his shoulder while cheating at football against TJ Watt.
It's tough.
And he is now shoulder surgery, out for the year. I guess my first question to you, and I feel like we've done this before. What do you think the Titans should do along the offensive line? What do you think the Titans will do along the offensive line?
I'm glad you asked me this question, because I put out a really sophisticated, handy graphic, a handy chart that I made this morning on Twitter. It was two lines, right? There is most likely, least likely, very cool, not cool. And it goes Skoronski, Radens, Dillard in that order. The most likely, least cool outcome is Andre Dillard's back at left tackle. And I feel like that's where this is headed. The most cool, very unlikely scenario is you bump the young guy outside, let him cook. I've been asking for them to let this young man, Peter Skoronski, play left tackle since before he was drafted to whatever team he went to. And now, of course, Tennessee Titans. I cover that team. I've been yelling about it even more loudly for months now. If there was ever a time, now is the time. That being said, I don't think they're going to do it. I think that there's within the realm of actual possibilities is a Dylan Radens tryout at left tackle. I think that at the very least they give him a shot. I think we'll see some reports this week about how Dylan Radens getting snaps at multiple positions, including left tackle this week with the first team in practice. Like that kind of thing might actually happen. But if you had me bet on it today, it's going to be the boring, easy choice for them to put their newly appointed swing tackle, Andre Dillard, right back at left tackle, where he was demoted to swing tackle because he stinks at left tackle.
Okay, so it sounds like what I'm hearing you say is that what you would like them to do, what you think they should do, is play Peter Skoronski at left tackle for the time being.
Yep.
And I guess that's then a Corey Levin or Dylan Radens battle at left guard. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I don't care.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean,
okay.
I would put Radens in there. Yeah, but I'm fine with whatever.
Okay. So, but what you think is going to happen is Andre Dillard?
Yeah, I think that I mean, that's definitely the most boring, most frustrating possible outcome, right? They put him there before. They named him the 6th guy, the swing tackle, when they demoted him. It all tracks for them to just slot him right back in.
And I haven't heard an update, but I assume Chris Hubbard will come out of concussion protocol. I assume they
I've not
normally
heard a ton. Last week, it sounded like it was going to be a 1-week thing from the people that I talked to, but we don't know for sure yet. Yeah,
it seems to be where we're getting to in the NFL is that you get into concussion protocol, you are going to miss a game. That's where we're at with that, which I think is the right thing to do. So we have some. So I'll give you what I think, because I think it's interesting that you're going with Dillard, because I think, I feel like Dillard is what they should do and what they're going to do. Dillard should be at the bottom of both of the lists.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
And I actually I think if I am Mike Vrabel, and we've seen him make a decision so fast at left guard after 2 drives against the Chargers, pulling Xavier Newman-Johnson out of the lineup because it was, oh, this isn't working, we got to change it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what else Mike Vrabel or anyone else on the coaching staff needs to see from Andre Dillard. Like I just don't. So to me, I think eventually that he's last resort option. I don't know if that's above Jalen Duncan, to be honest. I know a couple of you guys are asking about him already in the comments.
Let's
to
be real.
me,
The only reason he's being brought up is because of that Mike Keith hit on 104.5 the other day. And to be fair, like it was an interesting tidbit. You saw this right over the weekend. Mike Keith was on Ramona and Kayla and Will. Ramon, Kayla and Will. Sorry, Ramon. And he
is Ramon
said,
is Ramon interested? Like could he come out of retirement?
That's a good question. If I see him this week, I'll ask him. That's a good question. I'll pocket that one. But yeah, Mike Keith went on there and said that he'd had a conversation. I think the radio crew had a conversation with the coaches in a pre-production meeting last week, and they were, to Mike Keith, surprisingly high on Jalen Duncan, how he's progressed. They seemed to be really in on him to the point that Mike Keith felt it was worth mentioning on the radio. So that was interesting. But if we're being honest, that's the only reason anybody is like, give Jalen Duncan a chance, because this is the guy we were laughing at in the spring, frankly.
Not Stoney, not Stoney, of course.
Yes, not Stoney.
Stoney wants to make sure that he's been pounding the table for Jalen.
And don't get me wrong, Jalen Duncan was a nice flyer pick, but is he ready to play now? I'd be really surprised.
No, and there's another position on the line that I think he's better suited for, and that is the right tackle position.
There you go.
So again, I'm assuming,
which, to be fair, with Chris Hubbard, they may need this week. Like, we don't know he's coming back. Maybe that's your chance to get a tryout for Duncan.
So I will say the one thing I agree with you on completely is that if you are ever going to try Peter Skoronski at tackle for the sake of like emergency situations here,
for science, test the theory,
then I agree this is the time to try it. I also see the other side of the argument, which is this is your starting left guard for the next 10 or 12 years. Leave him there. Don't fuck with him and let him go to work because he's been pretty good. And Aaron Brewer, by the way, like, what a game on Thursday night. We didn't touch on him much on Thursday, but that dude continues to put tape together back to back to back weeks. And the way he and Brunskill and Skoronski are playing, like, it feels pretty stable in there. So I like the three of them there. I know it seems, I mean, you could be totally right. He could be better at left tackle than any other option they have. But I also love the stability and knowledge and sort of known variables and commodity that they've got right now with those three guys. This is Dylan Radin's fucking job. This is Dylan Radin's at right tackle did a decent job on TJ Watt. It wasn't great.
Sure.
It wasn't great.
Serviceable.
But he did a decent job. And there were plenty of times in the 2 minute on the last quarter in a couple of those drives where he was one-on-one, and sure, he was almost beat on a lot of them.
right.
But almost beat is still better than what Andre Dillard gives you, which is destruction, being tossed into the quarterback regularly. This is Dylan Radins at left tackle, Peter Skoronski at left guard, Aaron Brewer, Daniel Brunskill, and then Hubbard/Duncan on the right side. That is where I am at on this. That is what I hope they do. And I can't believe I'm saying this. I think they actually will do that.
Okay.
I think they will. Dylan Radins has been better than Andre Dillard every play of the season. Am I wrong on that?
No, you're not wrong. I think I would be perfectly pleased, first of all, if they did what you're saying. And to be fair, well, never. I totally lost my train of thought. Let me go to another topic.
It's good content. It's good content.
It's good content. Yeah, no. Dead air and completely lost trains of thought are great for radio. The one thing I will say is with Radins, him and Skoronski are kind of similar in the fact that they both came in as tackles. Then they both were deemed by the coaching staff. These guys are interior guys. You got to play them on the inside. So as long as one of them you give a chance on the outside, I'm fine with. Oh, I remember what I was going to say. Here we go.
Oh,
so the talking point on Radins after that 49ers game in his first start at tackle. Remember, he played that left tackle position in
played
relief.
Well.
Yeah, he did well, and the whole talking point that was really blown out of proportion was like, oh, well, he made Nick Bosa switch sides. Like, this guy's a stud, right? And that's fine and good, and it was always kind of a cool fan talking point, but whatever. It's funny because now it's like, well, now he's done it to Nick Bosa, and he handled TJ Watt too. Like, that's a pretty decent resume. And at some point, you have to start believing that the guy can actually, like you said, not be dominant, but just handle it. Like, that's the bar we're looking for here is, can you handle your business out there?
Yeah.
Can you be serviceable at all? And the one point I want to make on Skoronski, while I'm with you that I love the stability on the inside, and you're right that we're not talking enough about Aaron Brewer. Frankly, it's because he's the only guy that didn't die at some point out there in that starting lineup in that game. So, like, we had to talk about everybody else.
There were at least 4 fatalities.
Exactly. So he goes under the radar in that way. But with Skoronski, a lot of folks are making that argument that he's going to be a really great guard. Why mess up that continuity of practice, of reps, of development? I totally understand that. And to pair with that argument, it's a lot of, well, he's not going to be better at tackle than he is at guard. Sure, understand that. It's also not the point that in my wanting them to move him outside, it's not in order for them to be better this year. Everybody's like, well, why do you care if this year's a washed season if they get better offensive line play? That's not the point of making that move. The point is, if he is a Madden rating 85 left tackle and a Madden rating 95 left guard, I'm not saying you will be. I'm just saying, like, if that's the difference.
Like 78 left tackle, 84 left guard.
Is it a worse player outside than inside? Right. Totally. But just in terms of value, like, go try to trade that Madden left tackle for a guard of the same value. Like, it's not, you know what I mean? Like, that's the nature of the position. Most tackles you'd move inside, they'd be better players. That's the nature of the job.
Well, ultimately, I think that's the question is if Braden's is, and not to use the Madden thing to simplify it all, but it does make it easy to kind of understand.
Right.
And we've done this before on the show. If Braden's is, an 80 tackle and a 78 guard, but Skoronski's an 85 guard and a 78 tackle, well, then you're reducing two positions by moving Skoronski out. I'm saying if.
Yeah, fair.
And so if that's the case, yes, Radens is not an elite option. He's not a great option, but is he probably, like, does it make both positions stronger together to have Radens at left tackle and Skoronski at left guard? And I think it does, because I think your value add with Skoronski at guard is the difference maker there to me. Because, like, they probably are, I would guess, roughly equivalent at left tackle. Like, maybe Radens is slightly better, maybe Skoronski's slightly better, but they're probably equivalent. The question is, isn't Skoronski a better guard? Than I think is yes.
I mean, one of these guys was the surefire best lineman prospect in their draft class. I lean Skoronski would be better at any of the positions. I'm perfectly capable of being wrong, but the point that we're making to boil all of this down, the point that both you and I
is
are
that Andre Dillard shouldn't be playing.
Yes, and furthermore, if this season is more about fact finding at this point than it is about winning, and we don't know what that coaching staff probably is still on the winning train. Eventually, they may be forced to derail, but for now, they're going to keep believing they can get back to 5-5 with 2 road games and then come back home ready to finish strong. Whatever. Let's
see how they play against Houston.
Sure. Yeah. Pretty good team, looks like. If this season's about fact finding, you are in a position as a team where you have a crap ton of money next season. Cool. Awesome. You're gonna have to spend a lot of that on that or draft capital, of which you don't have much of, on 2 tackles. Like, you need 2 new guys at this point. If you are officially as a team saying, well, Radens is not a tackle, Skoronski's not a tackle, Dillard is a tackle, but no one wants to see him play. Like, you're at the point where you need an NPF. Who knows at this point? You need 2 new tackles. Making sure you don't have one already on your roster financially, you have to do it. It makes way too much sense. You have to know you don't have one already.
To me, that's Dylan Radens. I mean, to me, that's Dylan Radens. Like, you know what Skoronski is. You know where he's going to be long term. You got to find out if Dylan Radens can do it. You got to find out if Jalen Duncan can do it. And maybe there's a pecking order there for sure. And Tyler says if they end up with a top 10 pick, they've got to come away with Fashanu, who's the Penn State player. Joe Alt is at Notre Dame, and JC Latham is at Alabama. All 3 of those guys, I might actually go Alt first, Fashanu second, and then Latham third. That might be my vote right now. Sure. But I think ultimately, like, this team, not to get ahead to like shows in next April, but ultimately there is a no-brainer need at left tackle with their first round pick next year. There is no, especially with the luxury of now thinking possibly that Will Levis is the guy. The free agency, you don't normally sign bookend left tackles in free agency.
Right.
You can find receivers a little bit later in the draft, and we know this organization is batshit crazy.
You can trade for one, but that requires draft capital, of which you don't have much of.
They went and got Hopkins to solve their problem, and everybody that was yelling about the draft, me included, you have to then step back and say, oh, they're playing with Hopkins, and they settled on it, and clearly he's been very successful.
Yep.
And also, we just have to know that this organization is like an old cat lady when it comes to drafting wide receivers. Like, they're just fucking crazy. But I think, but like, to me, like, it's not quarterback. Sure, is corner going to be a need next year? Probably. But like,
corner's always a need.
left tackle is right there. And if you learn that Radens is a starter, you move into right tackle, and then all of a sudden you have your 2 tackles. So we can move on from the offensive line. It's been 20 minutes of this already. Tyler, I agree with you. And Ed says, please don't spend any dollars for free agent offensive linemen. Build in the draft. Get your depth via free agency. I think that's the right approach from Ed as well. So Stoney saying JC Latham is a franchise right tackle. I kind of agree with that as well. So, okay. Sinkers Beverages, Kingston Group. We're going to get into the Titans' fans' worst nightmare here for a second. It's going to cause you to drink. It might cause you to throw things around your house, in which case you'll need some renovation work. So talk to the Kingston Group. BuildKG.com is the website. So drinking and home renovation probably shouldn't be done at the same time, which is why you use Sinkers to Uber Eats, to the booze right to your house, of course, and then the Kingston Group to fix all your problems that you broke while watching the offensive line for the Tennessee Titans. So Sinkers Beverages, Kingston Group, y'all know the deal. D Good says T Higgins. I think that's absolutely a viable option. Is T Higgins. So and however much he costs, I think while he's more of an outside guy, I think paired with what you've got already, which is, Kyle Phillips, Hopkins for a year, I think it works. I'm a big fan of T Higgins. I like him.
Yeah.
Okay, so every single human this weekend, since Thursday, starts hey, how are you? What are they going to do with Tannehill? Literally, it is not, how are you? How you doing? How was your weekend? Good to see you.
Same for me. Yep.
It is. What are they going to do with Tannehill? What is Mike Vrabel doing? Now, there are a few things we need to get out of the way, because all of this stuff is happening while there is a story in the Boston Globe about Robert Kraft and the New England Patriots, essentially 2 sources close to the team, saying that Mike Vrabel is ultimately their top priority to take over for Bill Belichick if and when he retires / I doubt they would ever fire him / forced resignation, whatever. I don't think this isn't rocket science. One of the best coaches in the NFL who's established himself for about 7 or 8 years is going to be the guy who comes and takes over for Bill Belichick, who's a Hall of Famer, who's Bob Kraft's buddy. It all makes perfect sense.
Yeah, I'm filing that one under duh.
You're right. And frankly, I do believe if I'm Rand Carthon and Amy Adams Strunk and whoever else is making the decision on this, I'm assuming it's Amy, you have the Patriots over a barrel. And I think asking for 2 first-rounders, which I think was what Denver just got for Sean Payton, or gave up for Sean Payton. I think it's 2 first, right?
It was first and a second, I believe.
There is no reason that you could not get 2 first-round picks for Mike Vrabel.
I don't think so.
Because the Patriots don't have another Hall of Famer who's had a 7-year career of going to the NFL playoffs every single season and having a culture. And there's nobody that is like Mike Vrabel. So the Patriots, the Titans would have the Patriots, in my opinion, over a barrel on this trade. And I think they honestly would have to make it. That's my personal opinion. So I get your
Titans
thoughts.
Would have to make it.
I think the Titans would have to do it. I think you have to do it. It's not that he's not a great coach. It's not that he's not worth keeping. He is, but I think you're going to have an opportunity to sort of rake them over the coals on that trade. And I think you got to do it. And it helps the rebuild and it helps Levis. You just can't go fuck up the coaching hire after that. But
no pressure. It's really easy to hire good coaches.
But that's all the backdrop of Mike Vrabel, who is loyal to a fault, who is trying to win at almost everything that he does is about winning, not about long-term development, although he's kind of loosely acknowledged it. It doesn't make any sense at all for Mike Vrabel to go back to Ryan Tannehill. It doesn't make any sense. I don't have answers for people in my life. I think it is I think if you thought the insurrection was bad, I think this city would march on St. Thomas Sportsplex if they put Ryan Tannehill back into the lineup. I really do. And I think Mike Vrabel knows that.
I had a very prominent national podcaster who I made friends with at the Combine last year, who I text with a little bit, Flex. I had him text me out of the blue the other day, and he said, if Vrabel forces Tannehill back into the lineup, I'm coming to riot with you, were his words. So
yeah.
That's what I said on my show on
they would
Friday.
boycott.
I don't have words for what it will be. I've refused to future trip and and talk about what it will be. Because if we get there, which I don't think we're going to get there, if we get there, I don't know. I literally don't know what I'm going to come on to these shows and say. I don't know how to contextualize it. There certainly is no defending it. I don't know. I'm really confident it doesn't happen. And for our sake and Nashville's sake, I hope that it doesn't.
Yeah, and Green Thumb says he's not going to tell the media. He's not going to tell us at all. I doubt. Maybe.
You don't think we get an answer tomorrow?
I mean, Thursday maybe. Like, there's no reason. These coaches all think that they have some competitive advantage by not telling anybody.
I totally get that. He told us on Friday to our faces, I will tell you Tuesday. So
okay,
maybe he lied.
Right.
Okay. But like, we're gonna hold. I mean, I'm going to the press conference tomorrow, planning to hold him to account on that.
Sony says, I hope they have a football show in jail. That's all I can say. No, I agree. I think you could see an empty stadium. Like, like whatever's the worst possible thing.
You thought the volunteer mustard game was bad. It's going to be bricks and batteries. I don't condone this, obviously, but people suck and they don't care and they'll do it anyways.
This city would riot.
The boos were bad for the Malik play. Just wait. Just try. I dare you to try it. And here's the thing, by the way, about the stadium. This, like, if you're trying to play truly just lean into the chaos, why he could think he could get away with it. The next 2 games are on the road. Like, he has a pass in terms of on game day getting away with it. And I'm just saying, if you wanted to, if Vrabel's thinking is if we can get back to 5-5 these next 2 road games, that means a win over the Jacksonville Jaguars. We're back to 500. We get a lot of home games. This is the evil thinking that he might be doing. Cool, fine. So I'm going to try with Tannehill to do that. They can't hurt me because I'm out of town the next 2 weeks. And then they'll thank me on the back end and maybe we move back to Will Levis. Right. And if it doesn't work, then we go back to Will Levis when we come home and everybody's happy. Don't worry about it.
I think ultimately his argument to us should, again, I don't think this is going to happen. So people
we don't think it's going to happen, but we're scared it is. Clearly.
But what are the things well, it's only because like every single human is like terrified of this. And I'm like, guys, chill the fuck out. This is not going to happen. Will Levis is the starting quarterback.
You know what this is? Have you ever seen there's like a game? I don't know if it's like Japanese. It's a foreign game show where they take somebody's young child.
You watch a lot of foreign game shows about children?
No, this is all the time. It's my favorite hobby. Okay. They lock the parents in a soundproof glass box and they take the child and they offer the children, like, you can have this bouquet of candy bars or a 7-day vacation to the Caribbean. Well, and then you have like the child choose, and the parents are in this glass box screaming and banging, like, make the obvious choice. And the kids are like, give me the candy. That's what we're all the parents in the glass box screaming, make the obvious choice. But that candy bar looks awfully tasty to the toddler.
Kids are so stupid. My kids are not, though. They're great. They're a joy.
Well, of course not, right?
So it's so funny, like, the reasoning, like, and this is why I think, number one, I think he is treating Tannehill like the veteran, like the loyal coach that he has been to every player and every coach that he has ever been around. He
deserves this, to be fair. He does.
He is loyal to his guys, to his people, to the men and women that work for him. He is loyal to the players. This is how he operates. So I don't think anyone should be alarmed by this. I understand why fans are anxiety riddled right now based on his comments after the game, but this is what he does. So I am not. I have not for 1 second thought anything else other than Ryan Tannehill is a high quality veteran backup option to help Will Levis navigate the rest of the season. That is all I've ever seen from Ryan Tannehill since the first throw to DeAndre Hopkins 2 weeks ago against Atlanta. That's all Ryan Tannehill became to me.
Ryan Tannehill, great mentor.
Vrabel is going to take care of him, protect him, quote unquote, in the media. He's not going to throw him under the bus. He's not going to, there's the competitive advantage thing where for the extra 5 days, the Bucs don't know who's going to be playing quarterback. If that's a thing that you believe in, which I don't,
the Bucs know,
but whatever. And then again, like it's just sort of, it's the other angle is, do I believe, I'm Vrabel here in this analogy.
Right.
Do I believe that Ryan Tannehill can win us 1 or 2 extra games in a division that's winnable that might get us to the playoffs? That if we are role playing, those are the reasons why Vrabel is thinking the way he's thinking. I think that's all quite stupid.
I don't think there's a think. Like you frame, I think that's stupid as an opinion. There are some things that are objectively genuinely, like, I'm not trying to be shock jock here. From every angle besides winning right now. And you could even argue that winning right now will, I mean, I talked about this on our show on Friday. Check out the Hot Read podcast when you're done here, everybody. There's a very significant argument to be made that with this Titans team right now, considering the currently shifting landscape of the offensive line and the weapons and just the way that they operate, like we've seen with Will Levis the past 2 games, an ability to, oh, this is crazy. He can extend plays. Oh, he can navigate the pocket. Oh, he can be breathed on in the pocket and not immediately go down. Oh, he can, and this is the coolest superpower that Will Levis has, and it's what makes him so exciting. He can generate power from nowhere, from any base, and get a throw off downfield that Ryan Tannehill simply is not coming close to making at this point in his career. Those are all really valuable things, not just in general as a quarterback, but on this team in particular. For this team to succeed, with Ryan Tannehill at quarterback, you have boxed yourself in on offense the way that you have to operate. You have to be on schedule. You have to protect. With Will Levis, you have some flexibility. That's really valuable.
One of the things that I have said for a long time, and I was wrong when I was on the air at 102.5 when I kept saying Mariota over Tannehill, Mariota over Tannehill. I was wrong. Now, nobody who wanted Tannehill ever suggested, unless you can show me a receipt, that Ryan Tannehill was going to post the best 30-ish so stretch of football games of his entire career. I stand by this. I think Ryan Tannehill is fine within the confines of a smart and talented offense. Yeah. I do not think Ryan Tannehill has ever been anything more than an average starting quarterback in the NFL. That's what he was in his entire career at Miami. It's what he's been outside of 3/4 of a season and then 1 season in which I believe he had a 2,000-yard rusher. And the team was at its best. And those 2 seasons of statistical production for that particular player in a non-personal way were outliers. It was an outlier. I don't think he's regressed. I think he is what he is. And guess who is more talented? Guess who is better? I think right now, today, Will fucking Levis. so like to your point, and I think everything you said is exactly right. The ability to throw the ball over a corner with a guy draped on your legs to Nick Westbrook-Akine on 3rd and 9, 35 yards downfield is not something Ryan Tannehill can do anymore. Extending a play and the amount of hits he took in that game, those are young bones, young muscles and young bones that got hit in that game. I'm not sure if Ryan Tannehill, bounces back from any of that stuff. And so, again, I think Tannehill's a valuable asset to have on the team, to mentor, to help, to teach, to go through prep, to do. It's important. But the offense is different with the young guy who's got more talent. Like, he's just significantly more talented. And it's what Tennessee Volunteers fans never wanted to admit. I don't know if they were blinded by the one bad game in Neyland Stadium when he was hurt and the offensive line was terrible and he had a terrible offensive coordinator, but the talent has always been obvious. It's always been obvious. I see a lot of pointing
to the Vandy game.
As well. They said the same thing about, he lost to Vanderbilt. He was injured with a terrible offensive line and a bad coordinator. If you go back and watch the tape, like I said, the entire offseason, watch the tape 2 years ago, when he has a good coordinator, a decent offensive line, the dude was throwing it all over the place. And his teammates have always loved him. So, again, now I don't want to rehash.
And Braden, you and I were always on that in the spring. And there was somebody else that's on this show regularly who was not. And it's
hashtag always Levis.
Always, it was always Levis. It was
He's
always
never doubted.
Levis.
Zach has never doubted Will Levis.
Never once.
It's never happened.
Just all the way up until 10 seconds ago.
So I think what's happened, and I get it, you have finally this new shiny toy to be excited about. You have a coach who is historically loyal and vague and has extra time. You have extra time to think about it over the weekend. We all know that and I think this is inevitable, guys. I really do. He is going to be the head coach of the New England Patriots. Okay. I think you need to prepare yourself for this. He is going
to vehemently disagree on something.
He is going to be the head coach of the Patriots sometime.
When?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know when. It's going to happen. So
if the take is in 7 years, sure. Not anytime soon, and I would love to talk to that, but I'll let you.
Whenever Belichick retires, you tell me the year. I'll tell you Vrabel's good. I think if Belichick coaches like 7 more years, then Vrabel probably.
How old is he now?
Vrabel probably doesn't. No, that's my point. I think the only way Vrabel stays as the head coach here is if he's been here for like 12 years. Like, he's not going to leave if he is like universally the greatest coach in franchise history.
Right.
Like he's not going to leave. He wins a Super Bowl. He's not going to
Bill
leave.
is 71, by the way.
Yeah. Win a Super Bowl, not going to leave. So there's a few things that could happen that I think would keep him here. But barring a Super Bowl championship and a long time that Belichick is still coaching, I think Titans fans need to be prepared. At whatever point this happens, he is going to be their only target. He's the only guy that can replace Bill Belichick. And so I think fans need to prepare for themselves for that. So I think you do that. So you have all of that with this Tannehill thing mixed with the extra time off, mixed with Levis. Finally, we have a new toy. And I think fans are like all in their feelings right now, I think.
If the New England Patriots made the necessary move to get Mike Vrabel anytime soon, as in the next year, 2, 3, they would be, for me, one of, if not the most poorly run, stupidest franchises in the league. People, I'm not seeing this talked about from the Patriots' perspective, really. Maybe I'm missing it at all in our media market today or this weekend. This Patriots team is nearing rock bottom. They're maybe even more important than the actual X's and O's and Jimmy's and Joe's they have on that team. Like their culture, the Patriot way, actively crumbling. What they are, their identity is shifting, and there's kind of like there's just a waywardness about them. And then like obviously the players, like they don't have good players, they don't have great prospects going forward. They're adrift at sea. If this Patriots organization decided we're going to send at least one, maybe 2 future first round picks that as of right now, at least this year, are going to be very high in a very good quarterback draft class in which we could get a badly needed quarterback because Lord knows Mac Jones isn't the answer up there. If they send that away for Mike, like, what are you doing? I see no reality in which they make that move anytime soon because of how costly it would be to them. So maybe I'm totally wrong. And if they do it, they're crazy stupid.
First of all, Timmy, welcome to the show, by the way. New England is a shit show organization. You mean the most successful organization in the entire NFL? Here's what I would say. They are not trade. It's not going to happen this year. I don't think it's happening this year because they're going to draft Drake May with their terrible first round pick this year. And they're going to have their quarterback. And you know this as well as I do. Their roster is not all that much worse than the Titans. Okay. And that can change very fast. That can change very fast with a couple of drafts. This is all about long-term play, replacing the legend, et cetera, et cetera. I'm just telling, like, this is a Patriots Hall of Famer who has established himself as a successful NFL head coach. There is no one else that they are going to go after. And I trust the sources exactly. And I've talked to a few folks. And I'm telling you,
I'm not disagreeing that they're going to go after him. Like I think that is their target. I just don't think that they can pull the trigger. And I also don't think Amy Adams Strunk is interested in doing it personally. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know.
I would guess 2 seasons, maybe 3. That I just think fans should prepare themselves for it. There's no harm in preparing yourself for it. If it doesn't happen and he's here for 15 years, great. But I think you should prepare yourself for it. And if you can get 2 first-round draft picks out of the deal, I think you fucking do it in 2 seconds if you're Amy Adams Strunk. So either way, it's not happening right now. It's not going to happen this year. People can.
I don't know how I feel. I need to continue to marinate. Clearly, because I have a very strong take on this. I don't know.
There like think about the greatest coaches leaving and retiring in football and in football specifically. Like the succession plan rarely is obvious. And when it is obvious, it generally happens. Jim Harbaugh to Michigan. Everyone screams, but the only person we want is Jim Harbaugh. Jim Harbaugh's the obvious one. It's obvious. Forget about the scandal this year. That's not what I'm talking 8 years ago in 2014 when like the flashing name and lights is so obvious that the only answer for Michigan is Jim Harbaugh. Guess what happened? They went and got Jim Harbaugh. And it's worked, frankly, outside of the weird cheating scandal.
Yeah. So maybe the Titans could hire Connor Stallions. Maybe he's available.
Like Danny White gets
right now.
White gets hired as the athletic director for Tennessee. It was always going to be his guy from UCF. It's just like Nick Saban. When Alabama's job came open, it was Nick Saban. They were going to get Nick Saban. And the only there is no other option for
That part's fair. That part's fair. When you hear
Brian
hoofbeats,
Daboll.
think horses, not zebras, right?
You gonna go get
Yeah.
Brian Daboll? Maybe, but Vrabel's
If things
clearly
really fall apart, yeah.
Vrabel is the player. He's the Patriot core guy. He is the Patriot man. So I'm just saying fans should be prepared for it.
Okay.
And frankly, I think the Titans are in a leveraged situation in that if that were to happen, they can use that leverage to squeeze as much out of them as possible. And I think it's possible. So,
okay.
I wasn't trying to throw you off there. I just think that's something that.
No, I mean, you have a strong take on it. I was happy to listen to your take. I have some takes on it, but I don't know yet. I don't know. I need to let the story further develop before I have a really strong.
It's a long tail. It's a long tail story.
Right.
And oh, by the way, what's the backdrop on all of that? A front office that maybe there's some tension with.
Here we go. We can spend the next hour on that, huh?
I'm just saying.
Yeah.
A clean start with the organization that he knows.
Tell us more about your vague and shady sources you've been talking about. Tell us more. All of your whispers from the wall.
I think it's pretty obvious that there is a natural and inherent tension between the administration and the coaching staff for the Tennessee Titans. Some of that is healthy. Some of that is good.
Is one of your sources that bottle of bourbon that's been talking to you back there? Has it been whispering sweet nothings in your ear about the Tennessee Titans front office?
It is some of the best bourbon I have ever tasted in my entire life.
It's clearly one of your sources. Has to be.
Russell's 10-year barrel pick Sinkers Beverages. Go fucking get it. I'm telling you, just go get it. Just go get it.
For a segue.
Kingston Group, buildkg.com. Will Levis is the starter. Full stop. Don't stop stressing, Titans fans. You don't need to stress for another 2 years when Mike Vrabel's the coach of the Patriots, okay? You don't need to stress out. Stoney, stop stressing. You got a couple years with Vrabes. It's a better situation.
Here's a take for you.
Unless he has GM control in New England.
Just saying.
It may be a better situation in his head, but giving a coach GM control is not a better situation for anybody but the coach.
I think, it's bad for the team, generally speaking. It doesn't work very well.
No.
Belichick's the only guy that's ever done it. So,
and
I agree with you on that.
Barely competent at it.
Barely competent. Okay.
As being a GM and coach, he is barely competent at doing both of those.
When did he get the title of GM? What year?
Official title? I don't know. Yeah. Does he even have the official title now?
I mean, how long has he not been I thought he's been the GM.
That's a great question. I thought he's been kind of pulling the strings for a long time now. Maybe I'm wrong about that.
Which would include a bunch of Super Bowls. So it's hard to say that he didn't do a good enough job.
Well, by a long time, I mean the last 4 or 5 years. I don't mean since the beginning. Now, if I'm wrong and he's been the GM since the beginning, then I'll take that back. But I think it's been the recent.
Well, Scott Pioli, I believe, was the GM for a long time, and on those first.
I thought they had an actual GM for a long time, but I could be wrong. I don't know.
PBK. I think Pretty Boy Kelly, right? PBK. Yep. I think there was a power struggle. J-Rob versus Vrabel. Vrabel won the power struggle and was just given carte blanche control over personnel this year. We're getting one go around with his guys.
That's such BS, man. I absolutely not. No, I mean, it's crazy. To think that Rand Carthen has no control over personnel is insane. He's the personnel guy. I
don't think that, but I think ultimately.
No, but that's what Pretty Boy Kelly thinks, is that Vrabel's been the personnel guy this whole time and Rand's just been hanging out at the office. What? No.
So I think there's a person who has to say yes or no on a player eventually. So it has to be one person that says that. Green Thumb says, wouldn't the new GM hire the coach for the Pats? Not necessarily. If Robert Kraft is doing the deal and trading for Mike Vrabel and saying, Vrabel, you're the guy, you have both roles. You're the coach and GM. Which again, I don't think
the new GM's going to listen to the owner. I'd imagine, right?
Which is also could be Mike Vrabel in this situation.
Sure, yeah.
So anyway, I don't think he's going anywhere in the short term. But you package that with some people who are there's some portion of the fans that's saying hot seat Mike Vrabel.
Yeah,
there's a tension in the back end of the front office. He's a Patriot Hall of Famer. Belichick's going to retire. Don't tell me this is not logical. It's very logical.
It's not it's a crazy thing. It's not. No, there's totally bones to it. I'm with you there.
There you go. Okay. You want to talk some SEC here? Sinkers Beverages, Kingston Group.
Way less weird than our Titans conversations today. We can talk about some normal SEC football that occurred this weekend.
But Will Levis is so much more fun. It's just.
I didn't say it was more fun. I said it was more normal. This conversation's been weird today.
Yeah, the more things change and the more teams up and down and come and go, and Ole Miss is good and Tennessee's back and Texas is pretty good and blah, 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 blah. Still Bama and Georgia.
I was about to say
championship game.
Back to college football where nothing changes at the end of the day. Gotta hate it, honestly. But
Green Thumb,
whatever.
I do not listen to any radio, just so you know. That's not a disrespectful comment to any good radio hosts out there. I want my content on this show to you, the audience, to be as original as possible. So I do not listen to anything. I barely even read social media and Twitter. I barely do.
If you get in Braden's car, the console for the radio, it's ripped out. It's just wires sparking
it's a wire that goes right to my phone that plays podcasts. Is what
there
it
you
is.
go. Exactly. Braden just listens to himself on replay in the car. He's that narcissistic, everybody.
That's exactly
He just listens to all of his own shows.
It's called an air check, Easton. My bosses at ESPN make me do it all the time. It's
right.
It's very uncomfortable, and I hate it.
I got you.
Georgia, Bama. Here's my thing, and this is just for Mike Herndon. I guess Justin Graver as well. And my little brother, who's also a Texas graduate.
Mm-hmm.
Alabama's better than Texas.
What? Okay. No. Are you sure?
Yes. Because they're different teams today than they were then. Alabama is good enough to beat Georgia. Alabama has a quarterback who plays a lot of like Michael Vick. Alabama is finally injecting quarterback runs into the game. We'll get to the dirty hit Dallas Turner put on Jaden Daniels in a second, but like Alabama is gotten better every single week. And in a year where no one looks like they are an elite clear number one team, although Georgia is pretty close, wouldn't it be the most
you
Alabama?
Wouldn't say that of Michigan? Oh, wait, we were talking about the SEC. I'm done.
No, anybody.
Okay. So you wouldn't say that of Michigan? They don't look like a clear
Michigan hasn't played anybody yet. We'll find out.
Yeah, but just use your eyes. I mean, like I get it. You can only play who you can play, though. You don't think you wouldn't guesstimate that they would be if they played a real opponent?
I think Georgia's number one, Michigan's number two. I saw Ohio State in person 2 weekends ago, and I was at the game against Wisconsin in Madison. They are not the number one team. That
part we agree on. I think everybody but the committee agrees on. I don't know what's going on in there. They've been drinking the barrel picks, I think.
Exactly. The point is that like the gap between like Georgia in the last 2 years has been clearly far and away the best team in college football. That gap is significantly smaller this year. Michigan is absolutely why that's the case. Washington, Oregon, Texas, Florida State, Penn State. They're all very good, and they're all very close together. And so what I'm saying is, like, wouldn't it be ironic the year that we wrote off the Alabama dynasty, not me personally, but many in the media, the year that, again, Jalen Milroe was starting his second game of his career when they lost to Texas, and he threw a touchdown pass in the fourth quarter to take the lead. He made a couple of mistakes in that game. He is better today than he was 8 weeks ago. And
it sure looks like it. Yeah.
Wouldn't it be the most Nick Saban Alabama thing ever? The year they're written off, the year that's chaotic, the year that's wide open, that Bama comes through and gets better and better every single week and ends up winning the whole damn thing. I'm just saying, also like the Vrabel, just be prepared. Be prepared for it. I'm
looking to bring back a Stoney comment here. That's how I feel. You used the word ironic. I would use the words hella annoying, incredibly, unfathomably frustrating. You're right that it would be super Nick Saban. It would be super Alabama. It would be super college football for that to be the case. It will really suck if that happens, and it certainly could happen because, like you said, there's so many good teams, competent, viable, competitive teams this season. It's not like those years where Bama falls apart, but it's kind of underwhelming because the teams you do get in the final, it's like some of these teams, like there's really only, at the end of the day, there's still one or two great teams that are so much better than the rest. This year's so competitive, it seems to me, because let me ask you this. I wanted to ask you this a minute ago when you're talking about Georgia. The past 2-3 years now, they've been the clearly best team in the country, right? Am I crazy to think this is the worst of the past three Georgia teams? This is the weakest of the three, right?
It's absolutely the weakest, but that doesn't mean they're still not the best in the country.
Sure. It's just I think they're the most vulnerable, and there are better team. Like you mentioned, that gap being shortened. I think part of it is Georgia coming down a rung. I think part of it is the other teams getting better, right?
Yes. Michigan is better because J.J. McCarthy is a more dynamic player at quarterback this year than they've had the last 2 seasons. Not even close. I agree with you there. But Brock Bowers, you have to take into account, would be back for a playoff game, but maybe not for the SEC championship game against Alabama, for example.
For sure that he would be back for a playoff game?
Oh, for sure back. It's the
Okay.
same exact injury that Ryan Tannehill had. It's the same
Okay.
exact surgery, and he would have like 9 or 10 weeks to recover instead of like 4. The SEC championship game is like 6 weeks, so that's kind of pushing it. But then you have another 4 weeks after that until you have to play in a playoff game. So the assumption is that he would return for a playoff game. Maybe the SEC championship game is sort of like, yeah, who knows? I think the key here is, and I'll be very clear about this, the game against Missouri was way more about Missouri being just as good than it was about Georgia being less good. Missouri is a very good football team. They have almost every piece of the puzzle. They have no weaknesses. They can play a bunch of different styles. They have not beaten Tennessee much at all since coming to the SEC. If I'm a Tennessee fan, I am very worried about that road trip coming up to Missouri. If I'm a Tennessee fan, I think Missouri is a really, really good team. And I think they showed it against Georgia. I think the question I have about Alabama's the team. Like, I'm not seeing Ohio State get better. Their defense is great, but Kyle McCord has not gotten better. Like, Georgia has kind of been Georgia all year. They haven't really shown a ton of improvement, but they've been really, really good. Alabama, what they did to LSU, we're gonna just outscore you. And then, of course, again, we can get to the hit. Dallas Turner. I don't know what fans want from the refs, and maybe you can help me with this. I got a lot of tweets on Saturday being like, "Oh yeah, they got the refs won Alabama in the SEC championship game. The SEC wants the Alabama." Like, it's the old conspiracy nonsense. And I'm like, but they called it a penalty. So, like, while he should have been ejected, an ejection of Dallas Turner for hitting Jaden Daniels in the chin does not change the quarterback situation for LSU the rest of the game.
Right.
Like, it was a dirty hit. They should have ejected him. They threw a flag, gave him a first down. How does that ejecting Dallas Turner doesn't automatically, like, I don't understand.
Do you get the impression that it's like, well, you should have ejected Dallas Turner and then Georgia or then LSU would have won? Like,
then Garrett Nussmeier's all of a sudden going to win you the game on the road?
Because if that's the take, then yeah, no. I mean, that's cope is what it is, frankly.
Yeah.
But if it's just asking for consistency and a consolation prize, I guess, for LSU fans that lost the game and at least wanted to see the guy thrown out. Like,
he should have been kicked out of the game.
Sure.
I agree.
Yeah, he should. Everybody agrees on that.
But that doesn't automatically make but that doesn't make Jaden Daniels healthy.
No.
So I don't understand.
There was no avoiding the outcome of that game. That was an annoying in a vacuum instance, but it was not the thing that the game hinged upon.
No, I think it hinged upon the hit because Jaden Daniels didn't play the rest of the game, and it ended the game.
The action that didn't happen was not what the game hinged upon.
But, like, are the refs like whispering to Dallas Turner, like, "Hey, want to take Jaden Daniels out of the game so we
take him out,
so
get him out of
Alabama. Here. We won Alabama and Atlanta." Now, I will say, to your point about puking and like sort of the nausea that watching Bama win a championship would do. I'm curious though, because I've made this point before. If they're playing Georgia's the 2-time defending national champion. At that point, could have won like 30 straight games in Atlanta by the time they get to Atlanta. They've had all these they had an off the field tragedy with a player and a staffer dying. They've had a lot of arrests. Like, they're not likable around the country. Like, people don't like Georgia. Sure. Jalen Milroe is very likable. I know nobody wants to admit it, but sure. Alabama, and I made this case Alabama is an actually likable football team. They have to struggle to win. Nick Saban's all light and airy and cracking jokes. And Jalen Milroe is a fun player to watch play. He's smiling all the time. He's a good kid. Like, Alabama, I think, is the more likable team than Georgia is right now. I think America would be rooting for Bama, I think.
I think you're wrong, because I think America has a longer attention span memory than a goldfish. Like, Jalen Milroe is likable, totally. It's really unfortunate the jersey he's wearing, because he is still, in fact, wearing an Alabama jersey, which has, a long history of being dominant and annoying. And the only thing worse to me than Georgia setting this, this record-breaking run of 3 consecutive national titles and establishing themselves as the new dynasty. The only thing worse than that is the old dynasty we're kind of barely maybe just getting rid of, reestablishing themselves and saying, we're not gone yet. Like, that's worse to me I would prefer neither of the things. But if you had made me pick a thing, it's give me the new thing at least. Let me suffer under a new regime than the old one.
And that's a totally personal opinion. If people are going to be rooting, I'd be curious, honestly, if they play each other in Atlanta.
I'm sure there'll be polls on that because it's a very interesting topic.
Non-SEC fan, just like casual observer who loves college football, is going to be rooting. Like, because what could happen? What's probably going to happen in that game is you probably have an undefeated or one-loss Georgia, almost guaranteed, and probably a one-loss Bama, and the winner will get into the playoff. And the loser
Who does Georgia have left?
Probably does. Georgia has Ole Miss this week, a top 10 team, and Tennessee on the road. And so that they could absolutely lose. Alabama has to go to Kentucky and then to Auburn. That's a tricky test, but likely they don't lose either one of them the rest of the way. And there's a chance that both of them get in if it's like it was 2 years ago, undefeated Georgia losing to Alabama. Like it happened 2 years ago. What I think, like Alabama totally dominated Ole Miss, top 10 team, beat the tar out of Tennessee in the second half, a top 15 team, dominated Texas A&M on the road in the second half. Absolutely just like LSU had no answers for Jalen Milroe. No answers for Jalen Milroe. They're just playing really, really good football. And that is a bad sign for the rest of us.
It is. It sucks. I hate it.
To Stoney's point, if we had a 12-team playoff this season, how many teams would have a shot at winning it all? And honestly, this is why I kind of like Saban, because I think there's like 8 of them. I really do.
Yeah, no, I agree.
I think there's like 7 or 8 teams that could do it if they.
When was the last time it's been like this? By the way, because that's been the rebuttal for years to the playoff expansion is like, well, there's only ever 1, 2, maybe 3 or 4 teams at most every year that can compete. And now it's like we're like, yeah, well, psych, buddy, you could do it actually.
Well, here's what I would say. There's probably been a handful of teams that missed out on the playoff that you probably didn't want to play.
Okay.
And I can give you some examples, but like if we go backwards in time, Georgia the last 2 years, clearly number 1, clearly the most dominant team. Alabama in 2020, it's clearly the most dominant team in college football. Asterisk COVID year, but still clearly the most dominant. They're all stars in the NFL now. Everybody on that offense. 2019, Joe Burrow, LSU, clearly the most dominant team maybe ever assembled. 2018, Clemson, Trevor Lawrence, just absolutely dominant. Totally dominant football team. Like there's not been many times. 2017 is probably the last time because that was Bama with Jalen Hurts. Oh, by the way, he played in a Super Bowl and who was benched at halftime for Tua, but Georgia was the other team. It was so like there was a balance there between those two. That was a little bit more unexpected, quote unquote. When Clemson and Bama were going head to head in 16 and 15, a little bit unexpected there. That's fine. Ohio State in 14 was a 4 seed that pulled an upset on Alabama at number 1, where Florida State and Oregon were in the playoff with Mariota and Winston, ironically. And so like there's been and then Bama was back-to-back champions before that. Florida State won it in 13. Like there's always been a clearly dominant team most of the time. This year, I think we have like 6 or 7, truly. And that's why I wouldn't bet against the motherfucking greatest coach of all time. That's all.
I hate that you're right.
I don't like it. I don't want it to happen.
No, yeah, fair.
I want Oregon. I want Oregon and the legend ghost of Bo Nix to come back and beat Alabama. That'd be great.
It would be. That would be poetic. I'm rooting for that. I don't think it's going to happen, but I'm rooting for it. I have a question that's sort of related, sort of not, but you sparked this question in my mind. If both Bama and Georgia win out the rest of the regular season, go to Atlanta, they play and Bama wins. So both teams have 1 loss. Bama won the title and 1 head-to-head. Obviously, Bama has to be ranked ahead of Georgia, right? And if so, is that like a 1-4 situation? Is it a 2-3 situation? Like, what would you guess the ranking looks like if that were to happen?
The answer to that question for every team is always what else happens in the country.
Sure. Yeah.
Because if Florida State's undefeated, they take a spot. The Big Ten champion probably is going to take a spot. I don't think that, and the committee has said this, the committee says that head-to-head is only a tiebreaker. And I agree. It should only be
any other, they don't. Okay.
It should only be a tiebreaker. Like the fact that Texas beat Alabama is one of 13 data points for both teams. And like, I think Oregon right now is better than Washington. They lost head-to-head in Washington. That was 3 4th and 1s that Washington converted on and Oregon didn't. They missed a field goal as time expired on the road against their arch rival, and Washington won a 3-point game. To me, that says they're basically even. So if you look at the rest of their body of work, Oregon's been better, the superior football team, in my opinion. So I don't know. It's not automatic that Alabama would be ahead of Georgia. The question is, what else happens? If Texas runs the table from here on out, if Florida State runs the table from here on out, if Michigan runs the table from here on out, if Washington and Oregon run the table from here on out, like there's a lot of teams that have a path right now. And so I think the winner in the SEC championship game 1,000,000% gets in. If it's Georgia that loses and they're a one-loss team and it's close that they lost, it's going to be really hard to keep them out.
Right.
So I don't know.
That's the fascinating. I mean, this could be, and every year it's like that, right? Where the committee makes a decision, somebody gets the short end of the stick, and it's a lot of talk about the drama of the whatever. This season could be an all-time impossible decision, really, for the committee if things break the wrong way.
No undefeated Power 5 team has ever been left out, so that's probably not going to happen this year. The thing is, this almost always works itself out. That almost everybody loses enough times across the country to where you get to it's a pretty clear, clean top 4. And honestly, there's not been a truly controversial time in the entire 10-year run of the playoff where a team that was left out was like up in arms, irate about not getting in.
UCF would like a word. National champion UCF. Hello.
Sure. Okay, buddy. Like Ohio State in 2014 was clearly better than TCU and Baylor.
Yeah.
Like that wasn't even close. I think you could argue 2015 Ohio State, which is the same team that won the title the year before. They got left out. They were like number 5. They were a one-loss second place team with Zeke Elliott, Joey Bosa, Von Bell, Michael Thomas. Like it was just
pretty good team.
It was just NFL play. Quentin, not Quentin Williams for the Jets, but like another. I think it was Michael Bennett was on that team as well.
Okay.
Like just absolutely loaded. They lost to Michigan State. Michigan State got in. Michigan State got housed by Alabama. You could have argued Ohio State probably belonged in that situation. But there's very few times where a team, Georgia, I think what was the year they had 2 losses and got left out? That was a team that was probably one of the 4 best teams in America, but they never put a 2-loss team in. So if you lose twice, that's kind of it. But I think this year's different. I think we could have how do you leave 12-1 Georgia out of the playoff? Like, how do you do that?
Well, so I'm looking at the possible teams and their records right now. Like we've got 5 undefeated teams in Washington, Florida State, Ohio State, Michigan, Georgia. One of Michigan and Ohio State is guaranteed to lose at some point, right? The rest of them theoretically could.
Michigan and Penn State play this weekend.
Right. I'm just saying with Michigan and Ohio State still to play each other, somebody has to have a loss.
Yep.
The rest of them don't have to lose. But if you were to see a Bama upset of Georgia gets 1 loss in the championship game. And then you've got the rest. So you've got undefeated FSU has to be in. Undefeated Washington has to be in. And then the undefeated winner of Michigan Ohio State has to be in. Then you got a 1-loss Georgia or a 1-loss Bama or a 1-loss either Michigan or Ohio State on the outside looking in. Somebody has to be in. The other 2 can't be.
Yeah. Because Washington still has to play at Oregon State, Washington State, and then would have to play Oregon again. Like they have to play Oregon again.
True.
Texas has the clearest. Texas and Florida State have the clearest paths to get to their spot. Michigan has to play both Penn State and Ohio State. The Big Ten championship game will be a joke because it's going to be like Minnesota or some shit. Like that game doesn't matter. It's the Ohio State, Michigan, and then this week Penn State, Ohio State. So if Penn State loses, then they're out. Then it becomes a 1-team spot. Ohio State versus Michigan. Winner gets in. But then the loser of that game would be 1 loss and would have a good case as well. So like
I'm just telling you, all paths lead to confusion here. From my naked eye point of view, like I see there being record-setting levels of cope and angst and frustration and debate and discussion. And
I hope you're right for content's sake. I hope you're right.
Sure.
But around this time every year, first week of November, we look at the rankings,
we talk about this every year,
the teams, and we go, man, look at who's going to get left out, and it works
itself out,
and they all end up losing.
Well, I hope
they all end up losing.
Time. I hope it doesn't happen. I hope it's perfect, and
they're all going to lose.
No, I hope. Well, if everybody loses, then it's the same thing.
No, there's always 1 or 2 that don't.
That's what I'm saying. One of these teams has to
everybody else
fall off
does.
somewhere.
It will be Georgia 1, Michigan 2, Florida State 3, and then I think it's
Bama?
at that point it's Ohio State probably as a second place team getting in because I do not trust Texas. Texas is playing hard game after hard game after hard game. I don't trust Texas to run the table. I don't trust Washington also playing hard game after hard game. I don't trust Washington to get in. Oregon is the one to watch.
I was about to say Oregon is the one that I think could be frisky.
Oregon's interesting. I'm Oregon curious right now. Okay.
I think that's our cue to end the show.
That's the end of the show. Special thanks to Easton for hanging out. Sinkers Beverages, Kingston Group, Hot Read Podcast, Broadway Sports Media as well. Thanks to all you guys hanging out in the comments. As soon as we stop talking Titans, a few of you guys disappeared. So, Vrabel absolutely going to be the head coach of the New England Patriots. So you heard it here first, folks. All right. Okay. Thank you guys for listening. Rate, review, subscribe. Go to the 440 Sports YouTube page. Give us a subscription. We would appreciate it. And when you rate our podcast, if you're listening to it in that form, it does actually help people find the show. So please give us a 5-star review. And if you do not give us a 5-star review, that makes you a hater. Thank you guys for listening. For Easton Freeze, I'm Braden Gall. This has been a football show.